Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig Garber. You know me as host of the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, but when I'm not interviewing world-class guitar players, I'm busy helping clients with their marketing. In fact, since March of 2000, I've helped over 300 clients in 108 different industries all over the world sell everything from $20 books to $5,000 seminar seats and everything in between. I even authored a book about my experience called How to Make Maximum Money with Minimum Customers. And now I'm giving away a free marketing strategy session to business owners who qualify. If you can answer yes to any one of these three questions, then this free marketing strategy session will seriously change your business and your cash flow. Here are the three questions. Number one, have you done okay for yourself, but realize you haven't even come close to maximizing your full potential? And is this starting to bother you more and more as time goes on? Number two, would you like to start charging a lot more for your goods and services and only have to deal with those customers or clients who are willing and excited about paying you what you're really worth? And three, have you ever thought to yourself, gosh, if I could ever figure out how to attract more qualified leads simply by differentiating myself from the competition, I'd be making a small fortune right now. If you answered yes to any one of these questions, then this free marketing strategy session is for you. And don't worry, this isn't some sort of disguised cheesy sales pitch. Look, you'll be amazed how a few simple tweaks can change your business so dramatically. And this improvement, along with the increase in net cash flow that results, is what allows you to retire comfortably, put your kids through college, and take those much-needed vacations whenever you want to get away without having to think about, can we really afford this now? So book your free marketing strategy session with me right now by going to everyonelovesguitar.com/marketing. Again, to book your free marketing strategy session with me, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/marketing right now. Thanks for listening. Now let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber with Everyone Loves Guitar, and we're here with the one and only Richie Castellano, which many of you probably know already from his social media channels. He's the guitarist and keyboard player with Blue Oyster Cult. He joined the band originally as their bass player in 2004 when he was the ripe old age of 24. He's originally from Brooklyn, New York, and he attended Purchase College Conservatory of Music, which is just outside of New York City. We received a bachelor's in music production and a master's in music composition. He's also the host of the popular Band Geek YouTube channel and Band Geek podcast. His own personal YouTube channel is also incredibly popular. If you haven't already seen this, check out his Bohemian Rhapsody cover. It's got over 1.7 million views, and it's just a ton of work, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. Man, thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You're a fifth-generation musician, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, man, talk about that. What's the backstory there?
My great-grandfather, I think, is that 5 back? Or my great-great-grandfather was a guitar player. That's all I know about him. But his son, my great-grandfather, he was he played everything. He was a conductor. He played violin. He played upright bass. And supposedly he was I mean, this is the stories I've heard from my family. You never know what's exaggerated, you know. But one thing that's really cool I can show you right now is my grandfather actually gave me his conducting baton. So
that is cool, man.
It gives the story some validity.
Yeah.
Because I do have a conducting baton from my great-grandfather.
Make it real.
Yeah, so he was, you know, into the orchestra and all that sort of stuff. And my grandfather was a jazz bass player. And I actually have his bass upstairs in my house, which is really cool.
That is cool.
And there's an interesting story about that. Supposedly, my great-grandfather had a classical bass. And my grandfather would borrow it, I guess, during the 40s to do maybe the 30s, 40s. I'm not sure the timeline. But he would borrow it to do jazz gigs. And he would get made fun of because he had a traditional classical bass. And everybody was saying, that's not cool. So one day he traded in this beautiful classical bass for a cheaper, cooler-looking bass. and got into a lot of trouble from his father.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the bass I have. I have the cheaper bass upstairs. It's a K. But that's a funny story with that. And it's got this like sort of orangey color to it. So originally it must have been really cool looking. And my dad is a phenomenal guitar player and singer. He was actually in the band The Chambers Brothers for a couple of years.
Holy shit, those guys were great.
Yeah. He toured with them from 71 to 72, I believe. And my dad's phenomenal. Great entertainer. I learned a lot of stuff from him. And another person in my family is my uncle, Phil, who plays in a band with my dad. He's a bass player, and I learned a ton of stuff. Like, he rubbed off on me a lot. My dad's leanings are towards blues and R&B, and I certainly picked a lot of it up from him. But my uncle, his leanings were toward English rock. And, I'm a Beatles freak. I love Queen. I love Yes. And that's a lot of stuff I got exposed to from my uncle. And also my uncle introduced me to recording. All my first recording equipment came from my uncle. I got a 4-track from him. I got a 16-track from him. When I was 13 years old, he had kids. And the kids used to put, like, French toast in his tape decks.
Oh, my God.
So he said, I got to get this equipment out of my house. So I can't have it anymore because I got little kids walking around. So he said, I'm going to put the studio in your basement, right? And you can use it as long as you want. So he one day came over. He brought all his stuff. I had like a 24-channel mixer, 16-track reel-to-reel, a bunch of rack gear, microphones, everything. And I just went nuts with it because back at that time, like nowadays, every kid with a laptop has an endless, unlimited track recording studio with nonlinear editing and virtual instruments, and you can really make a great sounding recording start to finish on a laptop. In 1993, this was 1992. That wasn't the case. I felt very fortunate to have a multi-track recorder, and all of my money that I would save as a kid went to tape. Like if I knew my dad was going to Manhattan, I'd say, Dad, here's $35, get me a reel of tape. And that was like the thing I wanted the most.
I was just going to ask you, did you go down like to China by Canal Street over there and get all your tapes? Because that's where...
No, my dad used to go to... Before my dad had a music store, he used to go to 48th Street.
Okay.
In Manhattan, like everybody else.
Yeah.
And so that's my dad and my uncle. And this current generation, I play... my sister plays, although she won't admit it. My sister's an accountant, and she like playing trumpet is her dirty secret. But she's very good.
She's outed.
Yeah, exactly. But occasionally I'll get her to play something like if like the old theme song to my to Band Geek when it was just a podcast started off with this marching band, and that was all my sister. So and she did it in my mom's living room. I had like a field recorder, and she has little kids, and they were looking at her. They never saw her play music before, and they were looking at her like, "Whoa," which I thought was cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
And I have a cousin who's currently in Berklee College of Music. His name is Phil, and he's an amazing guitar player, and he's studying to be a film composer. So it's very musical. And my other sister actually runs my dad's music store.
Okay.
And my wife is an amazing musician, so I can't get away from it.
That's great, man. Man, I'll tell you what, and I'm not blowing smoke. You're a phenomenal guitar player. That was there's one Blue Oyster Cult recording, and you have your like very cool psychedelic looking music, man.
Yeah.
It was like a 4 or 5 minute solo, man. You were ripping it, man. It sounded great. And very British rock oriented, so I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, they're really kind in terms of how they treat sidemen. I mean, because on paper I'm a sideman at Blue Oyster Cult, but they're not. They treat everybody like part of the band, and like when you go see other bands play, the sidemen are all the way in the back, dressed in all black, no light on them, and they get no spots. But Blue Oyster Cult, they're really, really good to me. They let me sing a couple of songs, which is amazing, and they give me a few solo spots, which is more than I could ask for. So I'm very lucky in that respect.
To be honest, I was shocked. I didn't, because I thought when I saw it, I thought he was a sideman. And I was like, yeah, but you never know. That is a really good situation. I'm happy for you, man. And you sounded great. I mean, you sounded great with some dude on his iPhone. Trust me, you must be sounding great in person, man.
Well, the thing is, Buck Dahmer's the lead guitar player of Blue Oyster Cult, and he knows he's great. He's badass. He has got no ego about these things. He's not going to worry about me coming in there and stealing his thunder. It's like he does what he does. And, and eventually, or occasionally in the show, people want to hear something a little different. He turns it over to me, and he's totally cool with it,
That's great, man.
And also, there have been so many times where I've had, these special shows, and I knew he was around, and I said, hey, would you mind coming down and playing and backing me up? And he's like, yeah, sure. He likes to play, and any chance to play, it doesn't have to be all about him. If he's playing and making music, he's happy, and I really admire that about him.
That's awesome. There's a Blue Oyster Cult song, besides Don't Fear the Reaper, that I listen to all the time. Man, I can't think of Veteran of 1,000 Psychic Wars.
Oh yeah.
Wow, what a great song, man. I can't,
that's probably my favorite. The other lead singer in the band is Eric Bloom.
Eric, yeah.
Who I adore, but that's probably my favorite song that he's ever written, and I do a cover of it myself. I don't know if he likes it, but I do a cover of it.
That's a great song, man. Real old school anthem, power. I listened to that song 500 times when I was a kid.
I just like when you hear the song and you close your eyes, it's almost like you see it. It's like a very visceral song.
Yeah, very much so. Like you see the armies marching in front of. Yeah, that's how I always felt, man.
I'm getting goosebumps talking about that.
Yeah, man, it's good stuff.
That's what that's the ultimate goal. When you make a recording of a song, you want to give people a feeling, and that song hits me right in the feels because also I'm such a sci-fi geek that it's to have a song that works on the level of being a great rock song, an anthem, and is also on topic for the stuff I love. Yeah. That's like a win. I if I could just make music like that, I would.
Yeah, I hear you. That's good stuff, man. Well, thanks for sharing. That's a great background that you have there.
My pleasure.
You said, I read in your bio that you said your dad is your musical mentor, Ron Bumblefoot Thal is your recording mentor, and Rudy Sarzo, who I interviewed in episode 215 on the show, is your video mentor. I was curious if you could talk about each of them, and in the case of Bumblefoot and Rudy, how you wound up meeting with those guys.
Sure. Well, I'll talk about my dad first. My dad, having the experience of being a touring musician, and also then, working locally, he did weddings, he does club gigs. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but my dad pretty much discovered Sharon Jones. Sharon Jones played in my dad's wedding band for maybe 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and, we were very close with her, so we were very, very, very upset when she passed away. And, it was one of those things where, every time she hit, a major career milestone, one of the first people she'd call is my dad to share it with. So it was, a very, close relationship. But, having all that experience, whenever there's, a major, career crossroads musically, my dad's the call. Where I'm just I don't know what to do. My dad, he just because I know he's done all this already. And also, I really like how my dad can entertain, and I sort of learned how to, not be inhibited from my dad. My dad basically will go do. I know he's on my podcast. He's on one of the YouTube videos, but this is not his element. When you see him at a gig and he's totally just in the zone, he'll do or say anything just to get a rise out of the audience, and I respect that. Because everybody's got walls they put up and everybody's guarded. And when he's performing, he just doesn't give a shit. He does and says whatever he has to do to get the audience going. And I try to, when I'm doing a show, I really try to be in tune with the audience. And I think he reads an audience better than anybody. And that's one of the main things I got from him. And also, like, playing with Blue Oyster Cult, watching Eric Bloom call set lists, greeting the audience, like, okay, we were about to do this obscure song from our first album, but people are dancing, so let's do a rocker. So just those skills are things that you can't learn in school.
Oh, yeah.
You have to just watch people and pick up. So, and also my dad sings way better than I can ever hope to sing. So, I try to emulate him, and he thinks I'm making fun of him, and he's partially right. But I mean, in making fun of him, I'm becoming a better singer.
That's great. That's good, man. That's got to be invaluable to have. I mean, it's so helpful to have a career mentor, but when he's your dad, that he actually like takes the time and care. That's really got to be great for you guys. Great bonding.
Tear him away from video games. He's very helpful. He's a hardcore gamer, my dad. He's more hardcore than anybody I know.
That's funny. That's
and so you asked me about Bumblefoot.
Yeah.
This also relates to my father. My dad has a music store in Staten Island. He has since 93, I believe, and he developed a lesson program, which my sister now runs. And Ron was a teacher at my dad's store. And I remember my dad coming in one day. I had all this recording equipment, but I hadn't really done anything with it. Like, I'd record a song and say, "Oh, here's a song I recorded," whatever, or make little demos. My dad came home one day with a CD called "The Adventures of Bumblefoot," and he says, "Richie, check this out. This is a teacher we just hired." And he recorded this album all by himself on 8 tracks. He had an ADAT. So I put it in, and I was blown away. Now, obviously, Ron is like one of the best guitar players, if not the best guitar player in the world.
Yeah.
He can literally play anything he wants, which is ridiculous. But what really impressed me was that this guy recorded this by himself on 8 tracks. And it sounded huge. So, and he like all the other kids would come up to him at the store and ask him guitar questions, like, how do you play fast? What's the scale you're doing? Show me sweep picking. Show me alternate picking. And I'd be like, how would you record that? And because he was so sick of answering, shred guitar questions, when I asked him a recording question, he went, "Oh," and he like immediately took me under his wing, and I started interning in the studio and recording bands. Like, he worked his gig besides teaching lessons and playing music was recording. That was his main gig. So he was working at a local studio, and I just came in and basically worked for free and recorded all these local bands with him. And on the downtime in between sessions, we would record his stuff. And I believe I'm engineering on 2 Bumblefoot records. I think Hands and Uncool. I think I did some stuff on. I don't remember exactly. He's got a crazy memory, so he'd probably remember better. But and he basically like upped my game in terms of studio stuff, because I really didn't have any instruction. I was learning everything just by doing it. And my uncle, who really isn't a recording engineer, and then Ron came in and he showed me how to EQ, and he showed me how to compress and how to mix. And it was like I learned more from interning with him than I did in college, just because I was there as much as I could be, and he was just showing me everything hands-on, and like he'd be like, "Okay, you're engineering. I'm going to go take a nap." Well,
plus he seems like I've spoken with him. He seems like a very demanding. I mean that in a good way. Like, very high standards. Like you're not going to get cut a lot of slack there, is what I'm saying.
Well, the Ron, famous Ron is not the same as unfamous Ron. Like, famous Ron, I guess, would do that. Unfamous Ron gave me a 40-minute speech about why it's good to eat pizza over a recording console.
There you go. Unfamous Ron.
We were. I mean, look, I understand it because he has a lot of fans now, and he has a wonderful reputation. But the amount of time we spent goofing off instead of working is astounding. But he's like sort of like reverse Mr. Miyagi, whereas Mr. Miyagi's being strict and you're really learning karate.
Yeah.
Like, Ron is being ridiculous and you're laughing, but you're really learning how to be a recording engineer and a producer. So that's what it was like. We did this one session where he was recording a song for his album A Girl Like You, and there's a vocal outro, and he starts screaming into the mic, like non-musically, just screaming into the mic, and I had to hide under the desk because I was laughing, and if he saw me through the window laughing, he wouldn't be able to do it. So he ran in because he saw me disappear, and he saw me under the desk crying. So we had a great time. Those are some of the most fond memories of my life, like learning and just being there and laughing. It was great.
That's awesome, man. Very cool.
And then you asked me about Rudy. So Rudy joined Blue Oyster Cult, I believe, in 2006 or 7. And the thing about being on the road is everybody kind of needs a thing that they do just to pass the time. And most of it is totally just like a diversion. Like, some guys might play an iPad game. Other guys will read books. Guys will watch movies. Like everybody has a thing that they'll do that's usually just to pass the time.
Sure.
Rudy's thing was he would watch tutorials, and he was teaching himself 3D animation.
Yeah.
And so while we're all like goofing off and like just wasting time, he's being productive. And I was like, I was really curious, like, what are you doing? And he would share with me, oh, why don't you download this and learn how to do some of this? And I would just, because he was such a fascinating guy to me, because he was like a real rock star. Like, he's the kind of guy that can can't walk around without getting recognized.
Yeah.
But here he is doing the nerdiest thing out of all of us. And some of us, like Eric and I, can get pretty nerdy. But Rudy was out nerding us. So I would just get curious about it. And then as Rudy started opening up to me, he asked me a question. He goes, so what's on your YouTube channel? I said, I got like a video or two of like a gig. And he said, you're screwing up, man. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, nowadays, if you don't have a YouTube channel, you don't exist. And I took that very seriously. And I started putting stuff on YouTube, slowly. There was one thing I did. It's weird how, one of the themes of my life so far is like my hobbies always find a way into influencing my professional career. And
which is great.
Yeah, it is. It's just, and I think that's the way to do it. Because like a lot of people like compartmentalize, and I'm like, the reason I call my show Band Geek is because I don't want to pretend that I'm not like a fanboy who has a lightsaber collection upstairs. I don't want to pretend that's not a part of me, and then present this like, oh no, I'm this cool musician, and I don't do nerdy stuff. Everything I do is cool. Like for me, that's so fake.
Yeah,
it would be so fake, and I guess the word is disingenuous for me to do that.
That's the word I was thinking, actually.
Yeah, and so I said, I can't do that. Forget it. And so I did this. I started studying Kung Fu, and me and my friends were like white belts in Kung Fu pretty much, and we think we're amazing. So we're hanging out. Yeah, we're hanging out in my house one day.
Excellent.
And I'm like, hey, I just got this camera. Let's go in the back and make a Kung Fu movie. I'll put the sounds in later. And we're like, great, let's do that. So we go in my backyard. We make the most horrible Kung Fu movie ever. I put the sounds in. It's hilarious. I show it to Rudy. He says, you should show this to Sony. I was like, get out of here. He goes, no, I have a friend from Sony. So his friend from Sony came to a Blue Oyster Cult gig, and he watched, I guess on my phone, my Kung Fu movie. And the guy said, that's amazing. He goes, that's the kind of content we're looking for. And he hooked me up with like all this video editing stuff. And like I got an endorsement through my stupid Kung Fu movie.
That's awesome, man.
And that's how I learned how to do music videos, from editing Kung Fu movies. I learned all the tricks, all the picture-in-picture, everything I learned was from Rudy. Also, once I got the video editing software, Rudy sat me down in the hotel room, and because I begged him. I was like, Rudy, I got this thing, I don't know how to use it. And I remember I went to his hotel room with my laptop, and he sat there, and showed me how to do it. Oh, one of the funniest things ever is I was making a kung fu movie in the airport. Like, I mean, I filmed it at home, but I was editing it in the airport.
Just that statement is very funny. I was making a kung fu movie in the airport. But go ahead. Sorry, I mean.
So I'm trying to edit the special effect where we chop the guy's head off and it starts spurting blood. So I see Rudy doing a tutorial and I can't figure out how to do it. So I go sit next to Rudy. We're at a gate at the airport. I'm like, Rudy, I need this guy's head to fly off and blood to spurt out. He's like, okay. And he's on his computer very nonchalantly. Open up a new layer. Okay, mask out the head. Okay, keyframe that. Okay, bring in a blood asset. And he's just he knew how to do it. He knew how to do everything. It was amazing. But by the time it came, when it came time to do Bohemian Rhapsody, I knew how to do it because of the kung fu movies. And that was immensely helpful in learning how to do all this stuff.
Yeah, Rudy is an exemplary hustler, man. We had a whole conversation about that. He's just a super go-getter and, on top of shit. That's great. So that he got you pretty much started on your journey here with your blowing up your whole channel and ultimately doing the Bohemian Rhapsody thing. Absolutely, I really do owe Rudy a lot for that. Even though when I talk to him about it now, he doesn't really remember it. It's I guess it's one of those things when you meet a younger person, you just sort of say things and you don't realize what is having an impact or what's clicking. You say things that you think are obvious that they never thought about. So that's the difference. I hear you, man. You've met some good bass players between him and then you met Chasm. Yep. Holy crap. That's a good deal, man. I love Chasm. Awesome guy. Great guy, man. You first started with Blue Oyster Cult as the front of the house sound engineer. If you could explain, what does that person do, how you got that opportunity, and how it progressed to you playing with the band. I think that's a really cool story. Okay. So front of house sound engineer basically mixes the band. So what you hear in the audience is their responsibility. They're basically, they sit in the house, usually center about 100 feet or so back from the stage, and they have a mixer with every single instrument and microphone at their fingertips. And sometimes they're also in charge of cueing sound effects and stuff like that. That's what a front of house guy does. I was a family friend for a very long time is a guy named Steve Lucera, who at the time was Blue Oyster Cult's front of house sound engineer. He's since been promoted to tour manager, but he still mixes. So now he has to do both, which he's very he's got a lot of hats to wear. But my grandparents had a music store in Brooklyn, and he lived around the corner, and he was basically the unofficial intern of their music store. So I've known him my entire life. And he knew that I was studying audio in college and that I mixed. So he, at the time, was writing for a magazine called EQ Magazine. Now I believe he writes for Mix Magazine. But at the time, he had to cover the AES convention, which is Audio Engineers Society. And he had to cover that during a weekend where BOC was working. And I think there was some sort of miscommunication where he was supposed to have a sub, but something didn't happen. So, a week to the gig, they had no sound man. So I was in college in my dorm room, and Steve Lucera called me and said, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" I said, Sunday I got to mix a wedding for my dad. And he's like, "Well, how would you like to on Friday and Saturday? How would you like to mix Blue Oyster Cult?" I'm like, "Hell yeah!" Yeah.
So I was 20 years old, and I was not. And there were local gigs. They were I think one was in Seaside Heights and one was near Binghamton. So they were both drive gigs. And I was supposed to rent a car, except if you're 20 years old, you can't rent a car. That's right. So I had to take my grandfather's car. So I drove my grandfather's car. I picked up the tour manager. Now you understand something. When I told my dad my dad back in these days was very high strung, and when I told him, Dad, I'm mixing Blue Oyster Cult on Friday and Saturday, instead of him saying, "Oh, that's amazing," he went, "You're going to be at my job on Sunday, though, right?" Like, yes, Dad. So
that's a very dad thing to say.
So when I got to these gigs and they saw this kid, like, that's the sound guy. I was a child, and I mixed. And the thing is, when you mix weddings, which is what I was doing at that time, you always have someone's grandmother who yells at you that it's too loud, or someone's uncle who thinks he's an audio expert telling you what you're supposed to do. It's very frustrating. Mixing weddings is horrible. So here I am at a huge venue with the biggest PA I've ever seen, and all the faders at my fingertips. I mixed them painfully loud. Like, I just took out all of my frustrations from mixing weddings. I took it out on Blue Oyster Cult's audience. And supposedly, after the show, the drummer at the time was Bobby Rondinelli. And he told me, he goes, "You're the sound man?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I heard my toms bouncing off buildings in the distance."
Nice.
So they were very happy with that, because it's a rock band. It's a big rock show. So the fact that I just made it balls to the wall, they loved. And another thing I think is that I wasn't charging them enough, so they loved hiring me. So I did those 2 gigs, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday I wasn't going to have enough. I had to drive the tour manager to the airport, and I wasn't going to have enough time to drive him to the airport and back and put my tuxedo on to go to the wedding. So I had to drive him to my house, and my mom drove him to the airport because I had to go put a tuxedo on and mix a wedding after mixing 2 blisteringly loud rock shows.
That's awesome.
So then they had another sub they were using, but I guess because they liked me and I was cheap, they kept hiring me. And I worked on and off with them for about 4 years, until I think in 2003.
Like, you were still in school at the time?
Yeah, I was in college. Okay. And you know what? My college teachers were psyched.
Oh,
they were
I'm
like,
sure.
Awesome. Because I was studying that in school, so to be working as an engineer was great. So we went. There was aside from writing for the magazine, our tour manager and sound engineer also taught in a school. And Blue Oyster Cult had a month-long tour of Germany. It was actually 18 days. And he couldn't do it. So I got to go to Germany. The first time I ever left the country was with Blue Oyster Cult. And went to Germany and experienced a whole lot of stuff I'd never experienced before. Got to be on a tour bus. It was amazing. And I really bonded with Eric in particular on that run. I remember we went to go see Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. That was out that year. And we were so bummed that we weren't home to see it. And we found like an English-speaking, I think it was Nuremberg. We had found an English language movie theater where we saw Lord of the Rings with all like American people. It was really funny.
That's pretty random, the chances of finding that even.
Yeah, our bus driver heard us complaining about it and arranged it. It was very nice of him.
Cool.
So then then Eric and I stayed very close. And here's another example of how your hobbies can influence what your career is. Eric and I stayed tight by playing video games together. We were playing a game called Star Wars Galaxies. It was an online multiplayer game. I was a lizard guy and he was a Wookiee. And,
for the record.
Yeah, and we played this every night. And then one day I asked him, I said, "Hey, you like the Beatles, right?" He goes, "Yeah, I love the Beatles." And this is in the game. Like I'm a lizard guy saying this to a big Wookiee. And I said, my band is covering the entire Rubber Soul album. You want to come see us? He goes, "Yeah, I'll come to that." Because he's on Long Island, I'm on Staten Island. And so he drove down, he sat in, he played Cities on Flame with my band. And
holy shit, how cool is that?
It was very cool. And watched us do Rubber Soul. And on Rubber Soul, I played guitar and bass. I switched a little bit. And he sort of saw me play bass and filed that away. And then, weeks later, the bass player at the time, Danny Miranda, who was the bass player again right now, he got tapped to do the Queen musical, We Will Rock You, by Brian May.
Yeah.
So he had to leave suddenly with not a lot of notice. So there was like 4 days to the next gig, and the band had no bass player. And Eric called me up, and he was like, hey, do you have a bass? I was like, yeah. He goes, do you rock? I said, yeah. And he goes, all right, you're playing with us this weekend. You know, here's a list of 20 songs or something. And I had 4 days to learn 20 tunes, and this was like while I was teaching lessons and working and doing all other things, and I did it. And that was 2004 in September, and they haven't fired me yet.
Awesome. What a great story. And now you play keys as well, right?
Yeah, two years later.
But you're playing guitar too.
Yeah. 2006, Alan Lanier retired from touring, and rather than get someone else to double guitar and keyboard, they figured it would be easier for me to move over than them to get Rudy to play bass. Because
gotcha.
They also like guitar and keyboards is, you know, it's a spot vacated by an original member, so the fans were going to be kind of critical over whoever did that. And you know, I already had a pretty decent rapport with the fans, so it was a better move. The only problem was I didn't really play keyboard. And they asked me, "Do you play keyboard?" And I said, "Yes," because I really wanted to play guitar.
Sure.
I said, "Yeah, of course I play keyboard." I didn't play keyboard, so I basically had like 2 weeks this time, and like to woodshed my ass off, and basically like develop the muscle memory to play keyboards. And they were pretty patient with me. I told them, I said, "Look, there's some stuff I can't play yet, but I will be able to play it. Like there's like Cities on Flame, I couldn't play. I said, we gotta I'm gonna play like a really lame version of it for the first few weeks, and I'm gonna get it." And they were patient with me. And I'm like, Joan Crawford, it's gonna take me a little while.
Great song, man. What a great song that is.
So, and I still don't play Joan Crawford as well as Alan did, but I fake it pretty good.
That's the song in the beginning. It's got right?
Yeah, it starts off with the like the really, you know, classically inspired piano thing, which I believe was written by Joe Bouchard.
Oh, cool. It's so funny, man. You're bringing back a lot of memories of songs that I haven't listened to in a while that now I need to go and go back and re-listen to them. So I'm glad I'm hearing this.
Yeah, that's a great song.
I love it. I hear it in my head as you're going. This is really just like a walk down memory. Because I'm a lot older than you, so it's kind of like funny to be hearing all these. That's a great story, man. And I think that, you know, again, I always point out it just goes to show, you know, the work ethic, you know, what you did and what you put into it, and it comes back to you. Yeah,
I mean, you don't need to be the most talented person in the world. You need to be willing to work harder than other people, and then stuff will happen. I mean, just the Band Geek stuff, it takes a tremendous amount of work, and that's something that people don't realize really, because it looks like, oh, these guys are just goofing off in their basement, and we are. We're having a great time doing it, but when everybody leaves, I'm here by myself with all these tracks that I have to figure out what to do with. So, you know, that's it. But, you know, if you don't, I love this stuff. I love doing it, and I'm very careful to make sure it doesn't become tedious. And luckily, I have a co-host, Jarrett Pressman, who I can complain to, and who basically, you know, tells me, listen, you know, this is supposed to be fun. Make it fun. Don't go crazy. And he really he's a good guy like that. And a lot of people give him crap because he's not a musician, and he's like the non-musician on the show. And we give him a kazoo to play. And basically, whenever there's a saxophone in the song, we replace it with kazoo. And I'd say about 3/4 of the people watching our videos get the joke, and the other 25% hate us for it. Like, just get a sax down there. I'm like, no, but it's funny because he can't play an instrument, so he plays kazoo. You get it? People, you get some interesting comments on YouTube.
Do you ascribe to the, like, when you're cranking out content and it's a lot of work, like your situation, do you ascribe to like done is better than perfect philosophy?
This is another debate I have with my co-host Jarrett. He's just like, leave it alone. Leave it alone. Like, I'll finish a whole episode, and I'll be listening to it in my car, and be like, that hi-hat really isn't loud enough. And I'll have to go back and re-render the entire episode to fix a hi-hat. And I'll do it. Like, I'm completely obsessive compulsive.
Oh, wow.
But lately I've been easing up a little bit. It's funny because when I started, I was so obsessed with not having mistakes, and we used to we used to edit the crap out of stuff. We used to do hundreds of takes, and it was just grueling and not fun.
Right.
And as soon as I sort of got away from that, we started doing better, because I realized people don't need it to be super duper polished. People don't need it to be perfect. They want it to be fun. And if you're having fun, people watching you will have fun. So when it comes to YouTube, you can't chase views. You really can't. Every single project I've ever done for the purpose of getting views has gotten no views. Not no views, but has not done well.
Yeah.
Because you can't chase that, because it comes off that you're doing something because you think that it'll get you views. You have to do something that you think is fun, and someone else has to. Fun is contagious.
Yes.
So and in my case, goofing off is contagious. I think the word we always use is levity, and I just juxtaposing doing something ridiculously challenging musically and doing something incredibly stupid visually, or just making dumb jokes, putting a kazoo in a song or whatever, or just that, or someone wearing a Darth Vader mask while they're playing drums. It's we always do that. We did one episode where we played Thriller, which is really, really hard, and we were all dressed in Halloween costumes because it was our Halloween episode, and I was in character as Batman the whole time. And it was, it in a way makes it harder, because if you're just sitting there concentrating on playing, it's one thing. But when you have to worry about this whole other goof show going on, it makes it harder. But we like it. We like to laugh, and every time we get together in the studio, we crack each other up. And if we're not, then it's not fun. So really, fun is a big deal for us.
Yeah, and you can never tell what's gonna go viral either. You just don't know. You don't have that. I haven't found that it's not possible to determine that.
You can't. And also there's other factors at work, you never know when to post something. There's all this math involved in when you're supposed to post and what you're supposed to say and all the tagging and all that stuff. Because you can make the greatest video in the world, but that's only half of it. The other half of it is you got to get it in front of people who want to see it, and that's. I almost feel like a failing of YouTube is that it a lot of times I feel like I'm okay. I was actually fortunate enough to have YouTube contact me and consult me. They did this outreach program where they were consulting channels that were kind of growing, and this very nice lady from San Francisco called me up, or from Silicon Valley, wherever it was, and she talked me through how to use YouTube for free. It was great, but she said she said your content is not the problem. She said the problem is that the way you're putting it up is no one can find it, and even
because of the search engine, the words, yeah.
Right, the way you have to be super descriptive, and you have to tag things the right way, and it that's my failing as a self promotion. As someone who does self promotion, I don't have the patience for that sort of thing. I don't have the patience to sit there and hashtag things and figure out what all the right tags are. I just want I'm more interested in just making stuff. I really need someone else to do that other part for me because I'm terrible at it. But the failing of it is that one of the most common comments I see on YouTube is, "Oh my God, why am I just seeing this now?" Mm. that like people have to like really search to find my videos, and once they find it, they love it. And it's like, because before the internet, people of the nerdy persuasion, they thought that they were really alone,
Yes.
And now we realize there's a lot of us.
Yes.
So especially people who like, how many people, you know what the NAMM show is?
Yeah, of course.
I went to the NAMM show. You know how many like amazing musicians came up to me to ask me about lightsabers?
You're kidding me.
It was insane. It was insane. And it was just like, there's this weird like cross section of like band people and geeks that, the videos we make speak to, and there's a lot of them. So my job is just to get this in front of those people, and that's been a challenge. But, almost every day I see comments on YouTube. I can't believe I just found this now. Like, people watching like 3-year-old videos.
Yeah, but some of that, Richie, I think, because like you never know what's going on through someone's mind. It could be they just like, I'll give you an example. You remember that Gangnam Style? Of course.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I see it one day and I send it to my good buddy and I said, holy shit, did you see this? It's got like 38 million views. And he goes, where the fuck have you been? So that wasn't like I didn't find, it was like I just found it. So a lot of times like, oh, how come I'm just hearing about this now? Well, maybe you haven't been on YouTube in 6 months. So
Yeah.
you never know about that. But yeah, I get what you're saying. There's a marketing component that is not equally, but is very important to getting discovered in a search, and you have to think you got to reverse engineer it. I'm a marketing guy, so that's my domain.
Yeah.
You got to think about what are people want, what are they looking for that would prompt them to see this, and then where does that marketplace intersect with the ones who want to. So yeah.
One thing I've been doing that's kind of been helpful is, aside from all this, the playing and geek stuff, like, I'm a tech guy. I like tinkering. I like, I like playing with gear and new pieces of music tech. So like whenever I would get something that I was excited about, I'd make a video for it.
Yeah.
And that brings a whole other audience in. And then what you could do on YouTube is you can say, hey, if you like this, check out this piece of gear in action on this Band Geek video. So that sort of interconnectivity has been very helpful. And I want to do more. I'm like I want to do a lot of everything. It's just there's just not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, yeah. And you got to measure ROI too. How much time you're putting in. What's the return on that investment versus the opportunity cost of putting that time elsewhere. So it's always
right.
And you got to have a life too. You don't have
exactly.
You don't have kids, do you?
No, but I am married.
Yeah,
and,
so
my wife is very understanding, and she often helps me with my YouTube stuff. So
which is great.
Yeah. I mean, like I get what you're saying though, because like for example, the Kung Fu movies, like I have 8 more episodes in my head that I want to do, but they get like 700 views each. So it's like and they take me months.
Yeah,
and they're expensive. So it's like I can't do them. I had to stop.
No, you just have to. You have to run these things like a proper business. To manage, because for your own sake, otherwise you'll be working 24/7 and you still won't get all the shit done.
Yeah, I'm almost at the point. Like I have a friend of mine who owns a recording studio, and he told me like he knows he sees the amount of work I do. He's on my show sometimes. He's like, dude, if anyone ever needed an intern, it's you. So
that's a great idea.
I've been starting to like flirt with the idea of maybe getting someone in here to help me do stuff, or like someone I can send video out and be like, dude, edit this while I record something else, But the other problem is I'm a control freak, and if it's not done the way I want it done, I can't deal with it. Like that's, I feel like when you're working on your own stuff, there's a level of detail you put in there that you can't expect someone else to put in.
Yeah, but you got to trade off scalability for perfection.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the reality of any. I just hired somebody. It is like a fucking weight off my shoulders. And then I'm like, I gave him one thing, and I'm like, oh fuck this. Like that day, I put a Google Drive document together. I put like 8 things on there. I'm like, oh my god. I told my wife, I needed this like a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm starting to get there.
Once you do with that, if you find the right, what I would do, man, just from experience, what I've done and buddies have done, you probably have a fan who is skilled at this, who would love to help you. I would put out an ad to all your fans and, just say, send me 3 of, tell me why I should hire you. And then, send me 3 examples of the work you've done. And then you get to vet them out. And then if, it may take 3 guys to find it, but it'll be time worth spent, man, for sure.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Because you got people that are fans already. They'll love you, man.
We have a lot of talented fans. I mean, and the other thing is we have this saying on my show, it's your mix is whack.
Your mix is whack.
It's a story. I don't want to go into it, but I'll tell you the quick version.
Your mix is whack. That's going to be the tagline for this.
There was one. That's my tagline, by the way.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's going to be your tagline for this episode.
There was one week where I had to go watch like 3 performances. Like one was my wife's recital, one was my wife's club band, and there was something else I went to go see. And at the 3 things I went to, the mixes were terrible. And I went up to like the engineer. I was at my wife's recital, and the engineer had those area mics to pick up the shoot. My wife's a choir director, and they had one mic in front of this one girl, very hot, and the whole choir sounded like one person was singing. And I go back to the sound desk, and the guy's sitting there texting. And I go, excuse me, I don't mean to bother you.
Sorry to bother you.
Yeah, I said, but I think you have one mic louder than the rest, and it sounds like there's only one person singing. And he goes, oh, it's the mics. What are you going to do? I said, yeah, but you lower that mic and bring up the other ones. That's what you could do. He goes, it's just the way it is. I said, dude, your mix is whack. I'm trying to help you. Then I said it 2 more times on 2 other occasions to people, and then like I said, I guess this is my saying. And then my wife got me a T-shirt that says your mix is whack.
That's great. That's going to be the tagline for this episode is your mix is whack. I assure you. Talk about the Bohemian Rhapsody video. Like, what prompted you to make that, and what kind of opportunities have come out of that for you? And let me just preface this with I said in the beginning. Richie's got. It's just it's a work of art, man. That's what it is that you've put together there. And it's, I can't imagine how long it took you, but, it's a Bohemian Rhapsody, like note for note, every part. So, check it out on his channel. But go ahead. Sorry.
What inspired it was anger. It's very looking back, it's very silly, but it was like one of those things that needed to happen. There was a contest called the Queen Extravaganza, and it was I didn't really understand what it was at first. I just knew like people were sending in videos to see how much they could sound like Queen on vocals, guitar, drums, keyboard, bass. I didn't at the time realize that they were putting together a tribute band, but I just remember listening to the radio and I heard this guy, Mark Martel, singing Somebody to Love, and he sounded just like Freddie Mercury. So I looked it up and I said, oh, this is a competition. Like, send videos in and you win something. And I was like, oh, I can do that. So I went to my basement, I downloaded the backing track. I recorded, I can't remember what I recorded, like Killer Queen or something. And I programmed the whole thing with my pedals, and I had all the harmonies. And I have a Brian May guitar. I'm a huge Queen fan. I love Brian May. So I pretty much nailed the sound. I sent it in, and then I realized what it was. Like, they're putting together a tribute band. I was like, oh, crap. I was like, all right. Now, I'm already in Blue Oyster Cult, so I'm like, I kind of don't know if I could do this. But let me just, I said, but these things, like you send in entries and nothing ever happens. So I remember it says, okay, if you pass the first round, or you pass the second round, where I sent in 2 videos, I passed the first round, and it says if you pass the second round, you have to go to LA on such and such a date. And my wife read that, and she was like, and this is before we were married. This is before we were engaged. So she says, you dummy. I said, what? She goes, that audition thing is when we're going to Europe. That's the first 2 days of our trip. I'm like, I said, these things never happen. It's not going to work out. And she goes, yeah. So anyway, I made it. They flew me to LA. I had to move my whole vacation back. And this was the vacation where I was going to propose.
Nice.
So it's like I had to like pack for a 2-week Europe trip, and this thing, it was like a logistical nightmare. Here's what it was. I had to go to a Blue Oyster Cult gig and pack for Blue Oyster Cult and the Queen auditions, go right from the Blue Oyster Cult gig to the Queen thing. We did it at the Foo Fighters studio.
Cool.
And then I had to go to Europe. But the audition was really cool. Roger Taylor was there with Spike Edney, and we went to the Foo Fighters studio. It was really nice, and it was a great experience. And maybe I'm paranoid, maybe I'm bitter. I just felt like they kind of knew who they wanted already before we walked into the building. You know what I mean? And I just knew it from like who they were putting together, what groups they were putting together. And I was like, all right.
Like they had the guys they ultimately picked already together.
Yeah, like kind of like, so, like I just felt like, maybe I was the popular vote in terms of like people voting and who sounded like Brian May, but I didn't think I was the guy they wanted. So it turns out like financially it wouldn't have been a good move for me. But anyway, like I did it, and then I'm on my European trip with my wife, and I found that I didn't get it. And I had to not be pissed off about that for that whole trip.
Yeah, I was going to say, were you bummed?
I was really bummed because I thought I did well. But I'm in Europe with my wife, and to me, I thought I was hiding it pretty well. To this day, she was like, that ruined the trip. I was like, I didn't say anything. She was like, no, after that, you just like didn't care about anything. I was like, I did everything we planned on doing. I didn't say anything. She's like, you were trying to hide it unsuccessfully.
Was this? So, did you find out after or before you proposed?
After.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, so that kind
which was good. Which was good in a way, better.
Yeah, it was.
Will you marry me? Yeah. That wouldn't have been good.
Yeah. So, I couldn't be properly angry and pissed about it until I got home. And look, there's no reason to be pissed because people audition for things and. Like, Rudy says this, like, everybody thinks that, like, I get every gig I go for. He says, I don't. I audition for things, and I don't get it. So, better people got. And to be honest, like, the guys they got were phenomenal. There's, like, no flies on them. So I was angry for myself. I was not angry at them, at the guys they got. Like, They were great. Like, and they're both nice guys. I've become very friendly with them. No harm done there. But I was just pissed. Sure.
Are you like a super competitive guy?
I pretend like I'm not.
But you don't do a good job pretending.
Yeah, I guess I am. I'm not. I guess I'm competitive with music. I'm not competitive with like things I should be competitive with. But yeah, so I just take a lot of pride in what I do. Is all. And when I work really hard at something. And it doesn't work out. I always get like kind of wounded by it. But anyway, I came home from this trip and I had all this like frustration, and I just and I was like, Queen is like my favorite band, and now I'm like mad at them because they didn't like me.
I'm mad at Queen, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And one of my best friends is my friend Damien. He was like, "You can't be mad at Queen, you idiot." I was like, I am. They didn't like me. And he goes, that's your favorite. You can't work for your favorite band. Just stop it. So I realized he was right, and I had to channel that, emotion creatively. So I said, you know what? I'm going to just do the bad Mamma Jam. I'm going to do the big one. I'm going to record Bohemian Rhapsody. And the only thing that would have stopped me from doing it normally is the piano part is too hard. But I'd been practicing that song on the piano since I'm 12. Like since Wayne's World came out, I started like learning, and just learning how to do it. I said there's only like a few spots I kind of suck at, but I could like do those separate video clips and punch that and just do it over and over, because like Bohemian Rhapsody is not one all the way take; it's several takes, and people like when it first came out, people were like, "Hey, this is bullshit." I'm like, "Yeah, no, there's editing, there's takes. Like, I'm not saying look at me do Bohemian Rhapsody live. That's ridiculous."
Well, I mean, they were editing and takes in the making of the original record.
Yeah, exactly. And
so they're expecting you to make a video flat. I mean, that's not even...
No. And the thing is like, hey, this is bullshit. You're using this, you're using that. Like, yeah, I'm using every trick I have.
Of course.
This is an almost impossible feat for a guy like me. But luckily the drums weren't too hard on that song. I'm a miserable drummer. The hardest thing for me in that, because most of the song is like... boom, boom, like really easy, basic ballad. The only hard thing is, but like that wasn't too bad either. So the piano was the hardest thing, absolutely, for me to play, and I was like so focused. I had the tunnel vision. I did it in a week, and I basically I had no work. I was off. I locked myself down here. It did it in a week and didn't stop until it was done. And I remember I showed my dad when I had it just mixed, the audio. And he was like, "Yeah, that's nice." And I'm like, "Dad, I don't think you get it. Like, I don't think you get how much work this was." He goes, "No, it sounds good." And then I edited the video and he was like, "Whoa!" I'm like, "Dad, it's the same thing." But that just taught me something. And it confirmed what Rudy said. You can record the most amazing thing ever. If it doesn't have a video component, it doesn't have the impact. Which is ridiculous that we live in like the music video era now. Because I'm a musician. I want to listen to an album. I don't want to watch an album. But that sort of like, that was a huge lesson to me. I was like, the mix did not change from the first mix I listened to the one that's in the video. But once he saw the video and you can actually see all the parts that go into it, it does something to people's brains and it registers. Like when you hear a finished product, you can't be like, "Oh wow, that's great." You can't hear all the layers. You can't hear it.
Well, a lot of it is the medium to the online. I found this amazing. I have almost as many listens on YouTube of the audio of this show. It's just the audio of this show, just like a podcast, except it's going to have picture Richie Castellano there. And we have almost as many listens on YouTube as we do at podcasts.
Yeah, we have way more on YouTube.
Because you have a visual medium. But my point is, it's just that people...
Oh, you took a picture, yeah.
Yeah, it's just amazing that people want... I think a lot of it has to do with that medium. People want to be in front of that watching... it's replaced, television. Like I'm probably in the middle of your age and your parents' age, but between my age or like your parents' age, that, the TV was like the newest thing and everybody was like gathered around there. Now it's just YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing.
It's true. And it was an important lesson for me, that, show your work, it's frustrating as a musician because my training is in music. So I can make a really pristine sounding recording, but I can't really make a pristine looking video. I'm terrible at it. I've been learning. And I still think my videos look like garbage. But like I keep trying different things and experimenting with lights. It's going to take me a while to get really good videos. But the other thing I've learned is that YouTube doesn't really care about the quality of the video. And as much as I obsess about it, as long as you can see what's going on, that's what they care about.
Yeah. And
it's almost better to have a phone recording because a phone recording, there's less bullshit. You know what I mean? Like as soon as you put up the pretense of having an HD, video that you took with a fancy DSLR and you have the soft focus and you have all this stuff, people just immediately think it's fake, no matter how real it is. So, but that's the one, like my one sort of weakness is that the video quality, I'm like completely just clueless and flailing when it comes to that and trying to, learn as I go. And if you watch something I've done now as compared to something I watched when I started doing this stuff like 5 years ago, now is much better.
Yeah.
But it's just taken me so long to get to that point, and it's not even the point where I want it to be yet. So
yeah, but so long by whose standards? Like you might be comparing
by my standards.
Yeah, but you're probably your frame of reference is probably not realistic for a guy who doesn't do this for a living and has a ton of other shit that he's got to do to eat. I mean, I've seen your videos; they look great. And you could just make a story and don't think of it like, oh, I got to make this, animated or whatever. You could just tell a story in video, which you're clearly good at doing, and then put that to the music.
Yeah, whatever But my other point about that is, it's like an added pressure because, like, I went to school to learn how to make a record sound good, And that's my skill set. But when I'm done with that now, and that was all I ever learned how to do. When I'm done with that, I'm only half done now. Yeah. That's the crazy thing about all this. It's like, okay, now I have to edit. And in a way, the editing part is fun for me because it's not what I do every day, and I like it, and it's enjoyable. But, it's just, I just think it's interesting how like the skill that I have has become only half of the skill I need.
Yeah. Well, man, it's a work in progress. Just keep doing it. You're obviously moving very much so in the right direction. So, I mean,
thank you.
Just cut yourself some slack or something like that, man. I think you're doing great. Yeah.
I don't mean to make this a Richie Gets Down on Himself interview. It's just, I'm just trying to lay out.
No, I mean, you're just keeping it real. I mean, that's great. No, yeah. What are you, I mean, you got your hands in so many different things. Like, what are you working on now or upcoming that you're really excited about?
The thing I've been doing recently is I've been doing these live streaming shows.
I saw that.
And I started doing them because I had like 2 months off with Blue Oyster Cult. And I started going like, oh crap, what am I going to do? And so I started doing these. It's not my idea. I actually... And I'll give props. There's a guy on Twitch who's phenomenal. His name is Scene of Action Music. And he does all original stuff. It's very kind of like Muse, Radiohead inspired, which is not really the kind of music I listen to. But his presentation is so fantastic. And he's such a nice guy. And he's basically answered every question I've had about how he does it. And has been a real inspiration to me. And so I suggest you check him out. But, he does this for a living. He streams for a living. And I watched him do that, and I said I would really be interested in doing something like that. And also because my stuff is more classic rock inspired and pop, like pop rock, I guess, or power pop, I have no intersection with him. So it's not like I'm taking views away from him. And it's not like, me telling people to go watch him is going to prevent people from watching my gig. And that's the thing. Like, the internet's a big enough place for everybody,
Yeah, there's no competition, man. It really.
And I just find that to be great. Like, people ask, like, I put my guitar presets up online. Like, if you go to the Line 6 custom tone site and you put my name in, like, my presets that I play gigs with are there. I'm all into sharing. It's if someone wants to do what I do, they can do it. It's a ton of work, but they could do it. And just like I was inspired by this guy. So I do that on my YouTube channel. I do it on Twitch. My Twitch name is twitch.tv/bandgeekmusic. And I also do it on Facebook Live. And I was doing it every week, but I've since teared my studio apart. I've done some serious upgrades down here. And I've had to postpone doing the show for a few weeks while I get everything back up and running. And I really tore the studio apart to try to make those better. Also, we have a drummer on Band Geek who is fair-skinned and blonde, and we used to have a yellow wall back there, and he would basically vanish. so we painted the wall black so he looks corporeal. And I do have a couple of original projects I'm working on. There's a rumor that Blue Oyster Cult is recording an album. I know about as much as everybody else, because there's a lot of things on the business end that have to happen before we can do that. So I'm hoping to be involved with that. And I've been writing songs for another solo album, which I'm about 75% done with writing. But everything is kind of rough. I take a long time to refine things. But
you also have a shit ton of stuff going on, man. It's not like
I do. But like it's kind of an ambitious project. I was sort of down on original stuff. I was like only doing covers because I kind of felt like, what's the point of doing originals? There's no more record industry. No one's buying CDs. No one pays for anything. I almost always lose money doing this stuff. And then the last CD I made was a metal CD. I had a band with my wife, and she's a ridiculous singer. It was called Morning Starlet, and you can get that on my website, richiecastellano.com. And I managed to do it like almost like guerrilla style.
Yeah.
Like I did as much as possible by myself. I mastered it myself. We did like everything in-house. Recorded, the drums in the drummer's parents' basement, and made sure like we came in under budget, and we actually profited off that. Like not a lot, but it was the first CD I ever made that I didn't lose my ass on.
I was going to say, at least it didn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
And you got music out there.
Exactly. So that was the last thing I did, and I said, okay, but I didn't really make anything. And in doing the live streaming shows, I said, okay, I thought this is stupid. Like I'm not doing any original music. I'm doing all Blue Oyster Cult or all covers. This is really dumb. And then I have like people, like trolls on the internet saying like, hey, this is try writing your own music. I'm like, dude, I have 4 albums worth of music out there. Like a simple Google search would reveal that. But I was feeling like sort of like it was pointless to write music. And then when I started doing the live thing, I said, you know what, I'm going to put my originals in here. I'll put like half originals, half covers. And then I noticed people kept requesting the originals. I'm like, you know what? Okay, like it sort of gave me the little shot in the arm to do more. So that got me writing again. And the project I'm doing is very ambitious, and I'm like basically shooting for the stars with it, but I might not break atmosphere. So
yeah, but you know what they say, man, you aim high even if you come up 50% versus aim low and you come up 50%. That's always a smart thing.
Like the project, I haven't really spoken about it a lot, but I really want it to be some sort of multimedia thing. And that's the part that's worrying me. Like I know I can make an album, but like in writing this, I'm making it to be multimedia. So I've been talking to a few artists about it, and basically, like, I need to just finish writing this thing first and get everything demoed, and then once I have, like, the demos recorded for this, I'll have a better idea of what it is that I'm dealing with. Because right now I just have, song lyrics and me singing into my phone of what the song is supposed to sound like. So, and it's funny because the demo process, when musicians write songs, and I noticed this when young musicians will play a song they just wrote. You don't really know the song. You don't know the song until you try to record it. Because even if you're just sitting there with an acoustic guitar, like singing your song for somebody, you don't know it. You're fuzzy on the melody. You keep changing the melody. You change the rhythm of the words. Like you don't know how the song goes. So like for me, like I have to demo the song. I can't just play it for somebody. I have to sit there and record it. And this is almost like a bad habit. Because like I was working with another writer, my friend Hanan Rubenstein, who's a freaking tremendous beast, who you should totally get on the show, by the way. He basically said, it's not really great to like overproduce a demo because if you're showing it to someone else, you basically hinder their ability to imagine them doing the song or imagine the song in a different style. But for me, that's like how I learn my own song and how I say, oh, that little part I was singing to myself, I'm in between notes. I got to pick a note there, or that note doesn't go into the chord, or oh, these sections are 2 drastically different tempos, and you don't know that until you like start recording it. So that's the next step for me. But I have to finish writing it, which I just sit down and do.
I had a thought with something that you were saying, and it just lost me. I should have written it down. I apologize. I'll get it back. So that hopefully maybe see the light this year, or it's hard to say?
No way.
Point. Yeah, no
way. I take a long time. I'm trying to get faster with things, but unfortunately, it's sort of low on the list of priorities because I have other things I have to do first. But my first goal, I think my goal for this year is to get it written and start recording some of the demos. Like if I can get that done before next year, I'll be really happy. If I can have the whole CD demoed by next year, that would be great.
Yeah, that'd be good. I never thought about that, but that's true what you said, because it makes a ton of sense, because all those things you mentioned are so ambiguous until you record it.
Yeah. And you realize, I don't actually know how to play this song, or this song isn't really done.
Yeah. I never thought of that. Well, plus you don't have to worry about it, because you're not putting these. I think you're not presenting these to another artist. You're not looking to shop these songs, or are you?
Well, not these songs.
Yeah.
But there are songs that, sure, like if someone else wants to cover them, I'm totally down for that. But I have sort of an old style, and that's one of the things that when I was working with Hanan, that he's trying to get me out of. Like I definitely have a comfort zone when it comes to writing music. And it's hard for me to leave it, because I haven't been writing. Look, when I was in college, I wrote all different styles of music because that's what I was there to do. But since then, I've sort of gotten into this comfort zone. So I'm trying to get out of that.
I hear you. Well, good luck with it, man. I'll be looking forward to hearing what.
Thank you very much.
Let me ask you this: I normally don't ask this question, but you've been doing this such a long time. I normally don't ask this question to a younger guy like you, but you've been, and it sickens me that I say you're a younger guy, not because of anything in you, because of me. It makes me feel old. But if you can go back and give advice to younger Richie Castellano, what advice do you think you would have given yourself?
Don't eat bread. That's one thing I would say.
Okay. That's.
Let's see. That's a tough question. I mean, I feel like, also maybe embrace other styles, embrace things you don't like, because it took me a while to do that. As I got into my 30s, I really stopped giving a crap about my musical taste. And when you're a kid and you're a teenager, or you're in your 20s, you feel that that's such an important part of your identity, that when someone challenges that and asks you to do something that you don't like, you get offended. That's a waste of time. Especially if you're someone who wants to make a living doing music. You can write what you like, and in your own time, if you have your own band, you can play what you like. But really, it's not about playing. It's not about only doing songs you like. That doesn't make you a good musician. It's about, if you can play songs you like, great. Then congratulations. What do you want, a cookie? But if you can play songs you don't like, and you can play them perfectly, and you can play them as authentically as possible, that's something, But yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. Because, for example, in college, my friends who really embraced the hip hop and R&B thing, they did very well for themselves, and I sort of didn't want anything to do with it, just because it wasn't my thing,
Yeah.
But that wasn't the move. The move was, this is what's happening, and at least try to understand it so you can work in that field. But I got very lucky to be working for a classic rock band, since all I wanted to do was classic rock.
Yeah.
But maybe that was part of it. Maybe that's
Sure.
why that ended up happening, because that's the only thing I was interested in doing. But now I'll do anything. There's stuff I hate that and musically I hate it, but I have no problem doing it. I'm just I don't look at it as, all right, get through this thing, play the song you hate. It's no. The job is to try to play this as good as you can, And I got to interview Omar Hakim.
Yeah.
And I asked him, like, how does a guy like you, who has all these like amazing chops, like, how do you do like a pop gig where you're playing just a repetitive beat for, hours? He said, when you're doing like a fusion gig, yes, the focus is on chops and creativity, and it's to put in as much as you can. Because when you're doing a pop gig, the groove is to groove. The goal is to groove so hard that people can't help but dance, and that's like a totally different. It's a different way of thinking about it, but they're equally challenging.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because I've interviewed a lot of guys that Rudy was one of them that were in a place musically, like when he was with Quiet Riot, it was tough for them to get through because metal wasn't the thing at that point in time. It was like different style of music, and I've interviewed a lot of musicians who've said that, where we were in the right, we had a great band, fantastic music, and it was just grunge was in instead of what we were doing at the time or whatever. So I think it's an important lesson for like any musician probably listen to this.
Well, the music I like has never been in. Like literally never. Like when I was like a kid, I liked. My musical education was I started 8 or 9, and I was obsessed with the music of the 50s. And I literally, this probably has something to do with my dad and my uncle, but they walked me through like my musical education with the history of rock. And when I was very young, I was obsessed with Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and Richie Valens and Little Richard. Like those are my guy, Chuck Berry. Those are my guys, and I only wanted to play that music. And this is like when hair metal is happening, when glam is happening, not glam, but hair bands. Then I went to the '60s and I started listening to the Beatles, and this is during grunge. So when everybody's listening to grunge, I'm listening to Sgt. Pepper. And all my friends think it's stupid. Then after that, I started getting into like Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix, and then Queen and Yes, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and then Pink Floyd, and then I started getting into Van Halen and Kansas, and I just kept sort of going that way. And okay, what's next? And like I basically looked at it chronologically, and to me, as someone who's learning guitar and as someone who's now like someone who teaches guitar, that's a great way to do it, because as the genre evolved, it got harder to play. And that's why I really was not down with punk or grunge at the time, because I'm like, no. Like, I was looking at the decades of music like Mel Bay books.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, the 50s taught us 1-4-5, 1-6-4-5, and how to play basic pentatonic solos. The 60s taught us more complex chord progressions. And then with like Hendrix and Clapton, we learned how to play, like more advanced blues. Then the 70s taught us, about tone and time changes and, more virtuosic playing. The 80s took that up to the next step with almost impossible to play stuff. You had to practice with a metronome, and then I'm like looking, okay, what's the next step? And then all of a sudden, like after the 80s, like, no, we're done. Reboot. Like, go back to playing power chords. I'm like, no, I know that already. Like, what's next?
Yeah.
So, but it, that's as a student. Like as a songwriter, the songs are as long as the song is good, it doesn't matter the window dressing.
Yeah. Totally.
But yeah, so that's how I sort of approached it.
Man, let's talk about gear for a few minutes.
Oh boy,
just a few minutes. What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other 2 guitars would round out your top 3?
My go-to guitar is the Music Man Axis, and I have a bunch of them. Do I have one here? My main one's upstairs. It's the one I have like a one. They made me a one-off called, it's like a slime burst color.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah, I love that guitar. That's my main one. My favorite one is this one. It's basically an Axis, but this is an Eddie Van Halen model from the 90s. This is like my first good guitar that I ever got. Well, that's not true. It's my first like grown-up guitar that I ever got.
Is that like what do they use? It's not a Floyd Rose, or is it?
Yeah, it's a Floyd.
It's a Floyd. Okay.
Yep. So yeah, this is my go-to. Like, this is the guitar that feels right to me. I do have some other interesting ones. Like, I have a bunch of Music Man guitars, and I love those. You know, this is one that I've really come to love and rely on. This is a Line 6 Variax. This is a digital guitar. And basically it has modeling sounds in it that you can get any, like you can get a Strat, a Tele, a Les Paul, 335, a Rickenbacker, Les Paul Special, acoustic guitars, banjos, sitars, dobros, all this, and you can tune any string the way you want digitally.
Wow. So
like I can go from like a Les Paul drop D to a Tele open tuning to a Strat and standard, like just with the press of a button.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I also, I'm also like a modder, so I put DiMarzio pickups in here, so I can switch between the digital pickups and the magnetics. It's a really useful instrument. Unfortunately, my fellow guitar players haven't really embraced digital stuff as much as I would like.
Are you endorsed by Line 6? Are they one of your...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Cool.
I've always, like a lot of guitar players shy away from the digital stuff because, we want tubes, we want, everything real. Everything's got to be real and analog, and that's great. If you get your sound that way and you like that and it makes you happy and it makes you play better, more power to you. Me, I'm always I want to find a better way to do things and a more efficient way to do things. And I was one of those snobby guitar players. Like, there was years where I didn't use any digital effects. I plugged right into a tube amp and that was my sound. But then in doing road gigs, like fly-out gigs, and dealing with awful rental gear, I needed something that was more consistent, and that's when I got my first pod, and it made life easier. I said, okay, why is everybody fighting this when it solves a very real problem?
Yeah.
But, so I got the Variax, and he asked me 3 guitars. I got a Tele that I like. It's a Mexican road-worn Tele. That's pretty cool. And I got a John Lennon Rickenbacker.
Ah.
I'm a huge Rickenbacker fan. You can see I have 2 behind me, 2 basses. I don't particularly like the way they play or sound, but I just think they're the coolest, like just cool retro-looking instruments. And also I'm a huge Chris Squire fan and Paul McCartney fan, so like having Rickenbacker basses is a must for me.
Sure. I mean, you got a nice selection there, man.
Yeah, that's not even all of it. I have a problem.
But not real for a professional, musician. I think that's pretty appropriate.
Yeah, I'm not particularly precious about them. I just I bought them to fulfill a need. Each one of them.
Yeah. Is there anybody who influences your playing that people might be surprised to hear?
Django Reinhardt.
Interesting. That is interesting.
My grandfather only listened to Django Reinhardt, and it was like the only common ground we had. Whereas, like I'm not saying I could play gypsy jazz.
Sure.
I do a terrible impersonation of it. I could play a little bit of it, but I feel like the picking and the vibrato and the feel of it is what I sort of picked up on. Like, even though when I was actually the night I proposed on that European trip, we went to a gypsy jazz club in Montmartre in Paris, and there was a gypsy band playing, and my wife has a treble clef tattoo on her ankle, and the band saw it and they said, "Are you a musician?" And she goes, "Yeah, me and my husband." And they brought us up and we jammed all night.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, so the guy was like, I was like, "Look, I don't really play gypsy jazz." He's like, "Yeah, but you got the sound." Because I was like, I love it, I just can't play it. And he's like, "No, you." He goes, "You got the sound right, the picking and the vibrato and the feel." And that's sort of what I take into things. And also, but the funny thing is when you put gypsy jazz on electric guitar, you end up sounding like Django, like Yngwie Malmsteen, and that sort of brought me to Yngwie Malmsteen. And I start because like I liked that sound, like the swept arpeggios. You know, like if I do, for example, I'm going to pick up an acoustic real quick. There we go. So you know, you got like say you're doing like a gypsy thing. If I do like a and then I do a Yngwie.
Yeah,
that's gypsy. If I did that on electric, that sounds like Yngwie Malmsteen. Yeah. But on acoustic, it 100%. Sounds like Django Reinhardt.
Yeah, that's funny.
So
that's a nice sounding guitar, man.
This is a Martin something or other.
Sounds great.
I used to know what it was. I think it's a mahogany. I think it's a D15.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Thanks. So yeah, like I like I like Django. Another huge influence on me is Trevor Rabin.
Oh yeah, from Yes.
I mean, I don't know if I really play like him, so I guess that would be surprising. And I'm a massive Eric Clapton fan. Like, I always feel like I'm just ripping off Eric Clapton, even though it might not sound like. So I guess that would be surprising to people, that I think I'm doing Eric Clapton when I sound like me. But yeah, I love Eric Clapton.
It's funny. When I heard you play, I thought it was pretty original. I thought it was great. It was all, it was you. It was your stuff. I didn't like listen to that and say, oh, it was very appropriate.
There are a few licks I throw out. Like there are a lot of Yngwie licks I do, because what I like about Yngwie Malmsteen is, and this is not meant to be insulting, and it's that it's almost like the fat guy way of playing guitar, because it's the most economical, move as little as possible way to play guitar. Where it's like you look at a guy like John Petrucci, and everything has got to be picked and coordinated, whereas Yngwie, everything is economical, and if you actually sit there and slow it down, it's playable, and it's worked out in a very logical way, and I feel like he's a genius for figuring all that stuff out. So I do always throw a little bit of Yngwie in, even though like in guitar circles, Yngwie has become like a dirty word. I don't understand why. The guy's a genius, and if you actually sat down to listen to him and understand what he's doing, especially like there's all these like there's free lessons Yngwie gives on YouTube, and they're brilliant. It's just people can't get past the persona, I guess, and the style, to understand that like no, this guy's a genius and he's giving you the keys to the kingdom here.
Sure. Do you like fast guitar players?
Oh yeah, I mean,
man, you ever check out? Do you know Alex Skolnick? He lives.
Oh
in
yeah,
New York.
yeah. I got to jam with him.
Oh my God, man! When he does his jazz stuff, it's like, it's literally, man. It's like I envision someone clicking on a pedal in his fucking hand. I don't even. It's like, but every note is tasty. It's he's just something else, that dude.
I like it. I mean, my guitar upbringing was from the blues side of things. My primary teacher growing up was a guy named Mike DeCampo, who is a tremendous blues guitar player, and all we did was blues. Like anytime I would bring him a Yes song, he didn't know what he was doing with it. So I ended up doing like that stuff by myself. But I did blues with him, and I have a fundamental like blues background, and I feel like everything I play is blues. And even if I go off the deep end with immediately with Yngwie Malmsteen, I always try to come back to the blues. Like that's my foundation. But a failing of blues guitar players, and something that I used to do and then realized was total bullshit, was that blues guitar players, because they were insecure about their lack of speed, would say, "Oh, that shred stuff is tasteless. It's got no soul." I'm like. And I used to say that because it was easier than me sitting there with a metronome. But then I realized, no, it's not tasteless. It's hard, and we can't do it. So we don't want to do it. We don't want to admit the fact that we can't do it. So we want to call it bullshit. But I didn't like that. So basically, I said, all right, I want to be able to do some of this stuff because it sounds nice. I like the way it sounds, and also it's a crowd pleaser. Like if you can, if I throw like here's another Ingve. Like if I'm playing something, I go. If I throw that in there,
that's pretty
go,
freaking.
Whoa!
Pretty freaking hot, man.
If I throw, like how many times have people heard that?
Yeah,
it's like, and to me, I might be feeling that.
Yeah.
That might be great, but like everybody's like, oh God, But if you throw in, it's like, yeah, So,
yeah, but you know what? You bring up an interesting point, and it's a critical part of being successful as a musician is your entertain ability.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably something that's it's given short shrift, unfortunately, in the business.
If you have a long form solo, I agree with you. But if I'm talking about just like in crafting a solo, if you have a long form solo where you have to play for a few minutes, if you're like, you kind of got to be looking at the audience to find out which path they want you to go down. Like you can have a game plan, and that's fine, and you can even know what you want to play ahead of time. But like, there's stuff that if I'm doing it and it's not working, I will shift. And sometimes something very simple works. Like sometimes, like if I'm doing just like a double stop thing and it just sounds raunchy, people like it, and I'll say, "Oh, let me hang out here for a while." So I'm like always gauging that. And yeah, the point is to be entertaining. If what you're if I feel like if what you're doing is not entertaining, especially when you're a sideman like me and you get a spot and the spot isn't entertaining and just doesn't go over, you're not going to have that spot anymore. Like you have to, but also like you have to worry about upstaging people. Now, I'm very lucky that I get to play with Buck, who's a phenomenal guitar player and who plays his ass off, and also doesn't have an ego about these sort of things. So if I go and I play whatever hot licks I have, he likes it, because he also wants the audience to be entertained. And if it wasn't entertaining, I wouldn't be able to do it. So I feel like it's very gracious of when someone gives you a solo and you're a sideman, that's a very gracious thing they're doing. But then it's your job to deliver and do something that people actually want to hear.
Yeah, for sure, man. And like I said, it's interesting because all the stuff that you're talking about in this one very long solo that I saw you take with that slime green, mm-hmm. You did all those things there because you were really, and I was kind of surprised. You were ripping it, and it was great. It sounded fantastic. It was, all the notes were tasty, but you brought it back at the end. Yeah. It was cool, man. You did everything you're talking about right now.
Yeah, I mean that's like I'm just basically giving you my strategy for that particular solo. It's like, come back to the blues. Like, don't get because another thing is like as impressive as all the meedly is, after about 30 seconds of it, people get ear fatigue, and you have to bring it back to home, something that's more relatable. You know what I mean? Than just because, and some people say, "Oh, that's just showing off." Like, well, yeah, you're showing off.
Who says? But I don't get those comments, to be honest. I mean, I don't understand. Like, it's just showing off. If it has no place in the melody of the song, but that's not usually the case with most.
I just dismiss that because everything we are doing is showing off. Like we're
good point.
We're putting on our good clothes, going on stage, making rock poses, and singing and playing. The whole thing is an exercise in showing off.
It's entertaining.
We're entertaining. It's like, and if it's not entertaining, then you need to shift what you're doing. That's the way I look at it. If only 2 people are watching your video, or you only get 10 people to your gigs, like. That's not because the people who didn't show up are jerks. That's because you're not doing something that they want to see. Yeah. Like you have to figure out, and that's probably the most difficult thing. But like, you could start by making small adjustments. Like for me, it was like, okay, I feel like I have a pretty good blues vocabulary. I know the Eric Clapton, John Mayall Bluesbreaker album note by note, and I know how to play every single thing, all those licks. But that's not what people want to see. So let me throw a little bit of speed in here. I think the first thing I ever watched was Vinny. Who's a guitar player from UFO?
Michael Schenker.
No, he was
back in the
guy
day.
now. The guy now.
Vinny Moore?
Vinny Moore.
Yeah.
That's it. So the first thing I got, my dad had like this Vinny Moore video. I watched that, and that taught me some simple like one string patterns, like or that I was able to do instantly and bring that into what I was doing. And then I think I watched a Vivian Campbell video that was really good for beginners. And I started being able to throw some of that stuff in. And I said, all right, instead of like me talking about like, oh, how this is, just tasteless nothing. I was like, I'm going to learn how to do some of it. And in doing that, I learned how to respect it. And I'm not saying I'm a shredder right now, but like I'm not afraid of playing fast things anymore. And especially that I know how to practice with a metronome now. Like, it's muscle memory. I mean, it's your job to play it in time and to do it in a tasteful manner. But that's the idea. I'm totally okay with that, and I appreciate it, and I really am impressed by guys who could do it well.
Let's talk about music.
Sure.
If I asked you to pick your top three Desert Island discs or Desert Island digital downloads in no particular order, knowing that this can change tomorrow, what would be the first three albums that come to mind for right now?
Talk by Yes. A Night at the Opera by Queen. And Revolver by the Beatles.
I knew you'd have a Beatles one in there. I'm trying to think. Somebody told me, I think yesterday, A Night at the Opera. Let me see. Do you know Andreas Kisser from Sepultura?
No.
He's a guitar player from Sepultura. They're like a very popular Brazilian. I mean,
yeah,
he's like a freaking red carpet celebrity in Brazil. I think he told me A Night at the Opera yesterday. I interviewed him. That's interesting. Talk about you.
An honorable mention is "Songs in the Key of Life" by Stevie Wonder.
By Stevie Wonder, yeah, I heard that one last week. There's like certain albums I hear over and over again. That's one of them. What is something that you've learned about yourself along this journey? Because you've certainly done a hell of a lot and been in a lot of situations.
That I'm not very introspective.
But that was a very funny answer, man. That was good.
I don't know. I learned that I'm the guy that's just willing to do the work. You know what I mean? Like I'm not the guy that will get the big gig because I don't. I'm not 6 foot. I'm not heroin thin. I don't have tattoos. I'm not
heroin thin. I had never heard that. That is awesome. Yeah. I'm not heroin thin.
That guy. And I learned that, like, I went on a record company audition when I was like 22 for a band whose guitar player suddenly quit. And I went to an A&R guy's office and played. And the guy told me, like, you just played everything perfectly. He says, but I can't hire you because you look like a college professor. And because I was a college professor at the time. So, I was like, all right, so.
That's called Roy Buchanan Syndrome.
Yeah. The thing, okay, you know what I learned about myself? This is another thing when I was in college, I had a roommate named Connor. And I always assumed that I was this cool guy because I played guitar. You know what I mean? And I was a musician. And I thought, like, oh no, what I'm doing is cool. Like, all the stuff I'm doing is cool. I'm in a band, that's cool. I play guitar solos, that's cool. All this stuff is like, because I'm such a cool guy. But then my college roommate said, he goes, you're a nerd, right? I said, no, I'm cool. I play guitar. It's like, this is the this thing automatically makes you like awesome and cool. And he goes, no, you're really not. He's like, you are a nerd. You think about it. He goes, you don't go out, you don't drink, you don't do drugs. You sit at home and you sit in your dorm room and you watch Star Trek while you're practicing guitar. That's what you do, and you record music. Like, everything about you screams nerd. It's like the clothes you wear, the things you say, the stuff you do. And at my first response to that, my like knee-jerk reaction was like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm cool. I play guitar. Chicks dig music, even though like I had no chicks. But it's like, so, but then I said, oh my God, I'm a nerd. I like Star Trek. I went to go see Star Wars dressed as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like
Nerd alert.
Yeah, I'm really, really, really nerdy. And then like as soon as I embraced that, my life got better. Like instantly better because I became self-aware. And I basically that informed every single life decision because I wasn't pretending to be something I wasn't anymore, or not even pretending, but going around under the assumption that I was something else that I wasn't. Like as soon as I accepted this was a part of me, like instead of trying to deny it, like you become almost like a more secure person, and other people pick up on that and they want to do stuff with you. You know, you become easier to be around when that happens. And you know, like I have friends who are in the business who like the same stuff as I do, and I'll post a picture. They're like, don't post that. I was like, why? It's like, what's the worst thing? Is someone really not going to hire you because, you know, you like Babylon 5? Yeah. Like, if they're not going to hire you, then they're a jerk. Because that's part of who you are. You know what I mean? Like, and that's it. Like, so, really, I decided that, for me personally, it was okay to be a band geek. Like that was okay. That's how I self-identify. It doesn't make what I'm doing musically any less. It doesn't make, you know, it less interesting or less good, you know. And also I found that cool is the antithesis of creativity, of creative. If you're just sitting there trying to do something cool, then you're not going to do anything because you're going to be so worried about what other people think of it that it will totally kill your creativity. And somebody who I admire put this into perfect terms. It was Patty Jenkins, the director of Wonder Woman. I have a quote from her that I love. It was, the word cheesy is not allowed in my world. It's almost like being sincere is a bad thing, you know? And when I read that quote, it really resonated with me because that's how I've been feeling for a long time. It's everybody is so concerned with not being vulnerable or not being true that they put up this front, and most of the time it comes off as weird. And the people who don't do that, I find, have more fun. And they end up being successful. Like, you know, just, you know, like a guy who is the same as he is on his podcast or on stage as he is in person, for the most part. I mean, you know, obviously there's a private life. There's things that we're not going to talk about because they don't belong on here. But, you know, like, I feel like the person I am with you right now is the person I am. And that's important. And that was important for me to realize that being cool is like, it's like a cancer on what I was trying to do. It's like pretending to be cool. Like, oh, it wouldn't be cool. That's cheesy. Like, I don't worry about that anymore. Like, okay, I write cheesy music and I like goofy things and I make jokes and I make fun of myself and that's me. You know what I mean? And if you do that, people and you're being real, like people like that. That was the big thing I learned about myself, really.
Man, that was awesome. That was awesome. You know what? I was like, holy shit, when you said that was like the anti-answer to my question that I'm not introspective. I'm like, oh fuck, that was like such a clever answer, man. That was really good. That was good though, man. Thank you. That was very sincere. But yeah, I think so. You used the word disingenuous earlier. I think anything, done disingenuously is just, not cool. If you're cool because you happen to, there are some guys that are just fucking, Billy Gibbons, that guy's just fucking cool. He can't,
yeah.
But
I met Slash
right
at a metal fest in Europe, and he was just like oozed cool. Yeah. But that's who he is.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's been that since he's 16 years old.
Right.
I've been the poorly dressed guy watching Star Trek since I'm 16 years old.
Yeah.
So like, for me to pretend that I'm Slash now, it's not going to fly.
No, it doesn't fit. And it's going to feel miserable for you, actually.
Yeah, and like I go on stage at Blue Oyster Cult, I'll put my boots and my tight pants on, and I'll make my rock poses, but like that's not fake to me, but like to me, like I'm still me. I'm performing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I'm still performing, I'm still the same person. I'm just like not I just got over trying to pretend to be something I'm not. That's all. And that's why, like, when all my musician friends were saying, like, are you sure it's a good idea to let everybody know, like, just to see you wearing a Jedi costume? I'm like, you know what? I do it. And so now, like, the picture of, like, and the T-shirts and the posters of my show Band Geek is me in a Jedi costume with a guitar.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, that's it. That's me,
Sure.
And this is my friends. This is what we do. Like I'm not ashamed of it. It's just part of me. And like, if you think it sucks and you don't like it, then don't watch.
Right. Yeah. Change the channel, man.
Yeah.
Totally. Best childhood memory. You sound like you had a great childhood.
Best childhood memory. This is an easy one. My dad bought me, I think I was 3 or 4. Return of the Jedi just came out. My dad bought us these telescoping flashlights that were basically lightsabers, like that were, like sort of inspired lightsabers. He bought us 2 of them, a red one and a green one, and he had a gas mask that he put on and would chase me around our apartment, and we'd have lightsaber battles.
That's very cool.
That's my best childhood memory.
I bought one of those things for my son from the movie Toy Story. And I know exactly those things you're talking about, the telescoping things. Yeah,
I have a scar on my face from one of them, actually. I just was screwing around with my friends, and he stabbed me in the face. I had to go to the emergency room.
Oh, my God.
I'm for real, man. I'm not making this up.
Another Star Wars-related accident.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me something about yourself people would either be surprised to hear or might find a little odd, besides all the Star Wars stuff.
I'm pretty much an open book. Like, everything that's odd about me, I celebrate.
And you know what, man? I think that's like probably very liberating for you. And I think the fact that you've now built up this massive following only validates your decision to do that. Thanks.
I mean, for example, I just went to a gaming convention, and there was 100 people there who play this very specific small indie game that I like. And I just was looking around. Everybody was so nice. I'm like, wow. It's like, whatever you're into, there are other people that'll be into it. And there are a lot of horrible things about the internet, but this is the great thing about the internet. That, like, look at all these people in this room right now who would have never met each other, who are into exactly the same thing. Yeah. That is so cool to me.
Yeah, that is very cool. Hey, what's the most important thing your dad taught you? The pentatonic scale.
That's up there.
I hear you. I'm sure.
I've got a lot of mileage out of that. My dad,
that's funny.
Basically, he taught me about the entertaining thing, and to also when you're presented with a situation where you are totally outmatched in what you're doing, it's time to pivot. I mean, he taught me when to pivot. Like that's like an important thing from him. Like, yes, you should. Me and my dad have like sort of like a disagreement. When I was going to college, he did not want me to go into audio and production. He wanted me to go for guitar. because he felt like it's not good to be like a jack of all trades. But that's like kind of who I am.
Yeah.
And then eventually he came around to saying, like, you're not just trying to become a jack of all trades. You're trying to become the best jack of all trades. It was like the master of jack of all trades. It's like a weird thing. But part of that is like, I feel like I was taking his advice and saying, like, basically when you have a situation where you're totally outmatched in one aspect, try something else. You know what I mean? Like, pivot. So that's probably one of the best things. And also that, treat people well, and always give it your best. You never know who's watching you play.
Yeah, that's really good advice. But, ironically, you got this great gig with Blue Oyster Cult because of your audio skills sitting there doing the front of the room engineering.
Yeah.
So it's funny how things work out.
Yeah. It's right. If I didn't go down that path, this might have never happened.
Yeah, right. We probably wouldn't be sitting here talking.
Yeah.
Most important thing your mom taught you?
Oh boy. But my mom's amazing, by the way. Okay. My mother, I have like a tendency to overreact to problems. And my mom is a very centering sort of person. And basically, if it's not a problem with your health, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing she taught me. Like, as long as you're not like, like any little problems with career or even money or whatever, those are not real problems. Like, real problems is when you're unhealthy. That's a real problem. So to stay healthy and to keep things into perspective of like what is a real problem and what is not a problem. Like, that's like whenever I'm having like a real hard time with something, like my mom is the call I make, and she basically says, "This is going to pass. This is not a real problem," and that's basically how I look at things. Like, she can sort of separate like my dad's a very, very emotional guy, and my mom sort of knows when to not freak out about things. So I've learned, like, I freak out like my dad. That's my innate or knee-jerk reaction all the time. But then, like, I try to like mellow out like my mom.
Is your wife a centering thing for you, or is she more like you?
My wife is like my dad. That sounds hard. That sounds weird, but it's not like
I get it. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Super hard work ethic. You know what I mean? Very, very passionate, and like I just seeing the way she works, just watching my dad do gigs for years. She works in a very similar manner. They have a lot in common, actually. So that's like there could be times when we can be like oil, like gasoline and fire.
Oh, you and your wife?
Yeah, because we're both similar in that way, what we do. But that's what happens when both people do the same thing. Because she's a professional touring musician, just like me. So
yeah. You ever have a specific experience that changed your life or altered the way you think about things? Although I actually think that conversation that you had with your roommate was. Yeah,
that would be it. That's one. The thing that Rudy told me that was a big one for me. Meeting Eric Bloom, the Queen extravaganza thing. Those were all life altering moments.
Very cool. 2 more questions, man. Best advice you've ever been given, and who gave it to you?
I'm going to go with that Rudy Sarzo thing. I'm going to say Rudy saying, if you don't do video, you don't exist. Like, you gotta understand, I had nothing. I had like 2 videos on my YouTube channel, and I didn't even think about it. And I didn't even like dawn on me that like just to make a YouTube video, like I was just doing audio.
Yeah.
And that was excellent advice, and he doesn't even remember giving it to me.
And last question, man. I really appreciate your time and your sincerity, man.
Oh, I appreciate I appreciate you asking me to be here.
What's been the biggest change in your personality over, say, the last 7 to 10 years? And how much of this change has been intentional and deliberate, and how much is just a part of aging?
That's a hard one. I haven't really thought about it. I can't speak for the last 7 to 10 years, but I could speak to the last 2 years.
Okay.
The last 2 years have taught me that perfection is a waste of time, and that I wasted a lot of time in my life not doing things because I wasn't perfect. And now I basically, doing the live streams was took a lot of courage on my part, because when we did the regular YouTube shows, if we played and it sucked, we'd do it again, and we'd do it until it was good. And if we had to punch something in, we had to punch something in, I don't present those. I don't try to pass those off as being live performances. They're studio performances.
Sure.
But doing the live stream, that's live, right? And
you do your whole show live. It's not just like you talking. It's your whole actual.
No, my live stream that I do now, it's a different thing from the podcast and the YouTube shows.
Okay.
It's a gig. I have a gig. It's me, a guitar, backing tracks, synchronized lights, camera moves. It's pretty involved. But the first time I did it, I was like mortified by all the mistakes. And then reading the comments, I realized that nobody cared. The mistakes didn't make me any less. And another thing that really told me, that showed me that I was being ridiculous about clams and fret farts and whatever, is I got to record Tony Levin.
Wow.
When I used to work at American Musical Supply for a couple of years. And I recorded Tony Levin, and he made a bunch of mistakes and didn't faze him. I'm like, are we gonna do it again? He was like, no, it's good. I'm thinking, of course it's good. Everybody knows he's Tony Levin.
Yeah.
Nobody cares that he made a mistake. So it's I feel like I'm finally secure enough to be like, hey, look, people know that I can play, and that if I make a mistake, it's not because I suck. It's because I made a mistake. And that took me a lot of time to get over that and just learn the difference between what is a catastrophic failure of a song and what is just a clam, And clams are forgivable. Catastrophic failures are usually when someone didn't practice or someone is unprepared. That's the difference. A clam is someone, got distracted for a second and didn't look at where their finger was, or, got a cramp, or, missed with the pick. Those are clams. Those are okay, and I had to learn to be okay with those and not be hard on myself. And my output has gotten better because of it, and I'm able to do things faster now that I'm more forgiving of my own mistakes. Good, man.
Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for your time. Again, why don't you tell people where they could find you, because you got a lot of great stuff going on, and I know you get your music store. So.
Oh, yeah, I'll plug my dad's store. Go to castellanosHouseofmusic.com. That's my dad's music store. We got a lot of cool stuff there. He's got 2 locations on Staten Island, the 2 major intersections of Staten Island. So we got we have a lot of actually cool used stuff that we have on Reverb and eBay. And I actually oversee that. That's one of my side jobs, and that's how I stay involved in the family business. Is I run his online stuff. You can see my stuff at youtube.com/Richie Castellano. Actually, a hub for everything for me is my website. It's richiecastellano.com.
Let's spell that for people who aren't from New York.
Sure. RichieCastellano.com. And I have all my links there. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all that fun stuff.
Awesome, man. And, man, when you come out with a new product, if you want to come on the show and promote it, we'll do an episode just about that if you'd like. More than
I would love that.
Yeah.
Oh, also, check BlueOysterCult.com to see when we're coming to a town near you. We tour a lot, and come listen to Don't Fear the Reaper and Burning for You and all those good tunes.
Man, go support Richie. Go check out Blue Oyster Cult and come see Richie on the road. He's a tremendous guitar player, man. He sounds awesome. And you heard him shred right here, and he'll do it. He'll do it in front of you.
Yes, with an electric guitar and lots of distortion and delay, so it's easy.
Yeah. No, you're playing with a fun band, man, with great songs, so it's really cool.
Yeah, it totally is. I appreciate and feel very lucky for the opportunity I've been given.
Awesome. And check out Richie's website. It's richiecastellano.com, Castellano. You can find all his links there for social media. Check out his podcast and his YouTube channel and support them. And we all appreciate that. Man, thanks again. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Thanks again to Richie Castellano for spending time with us. I really appreciate it. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com, get on our newsletter list, get notified of future episodes along with early product announcements. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have some fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.